I'd like to welcome everybody to the Let's Talk Fishing video podcast. My name is Jay Angel. I'm going to be your host for tonight's at festivities. Tonight, we have part two of Mitch Metcalf from Due North Fishing Guide Service out of Reading, Pennsylvania. Guys, I was having the best time talking to this guy. Man, we were talking presentations. We were talking how similar our presentations are and how we agree on just about everything when it comes to fishing. And all of a sudden, bam, Entergy, my local electricity provider, decided they weren't going to do their job. Ha! Thank you, Entergy. But, enough of the negative stuff. I want to talk fishing with this guy. So how are you doing tonight, Mitch?
I'm doing very well. Just got off the water and putting all this stuff to the test out there. That's right. I have...
guys, the thing I didn't talk about when I was introducing him is he's going on 500 days. 500 days. And I always tell you, you absolutely can't learn anything about fishing sitting on your couch. Well, this guy doesn't sit. I don't even know if this guy has a couch.
I didn't for a little while.
But I didn't have him on to talk about his couch. We were going to talk about his ability to fish. So, Mitch, man, when's the last time you fished?
I just got off the water. Just got home, actually, running a little bit behind just because of traffic. But in doing that, I get the opportunity to be on the water a lot and see things that, maybe I wouldn't be able to read about or see on YouTube or something like that. So I'm out there, with the ability to put all this stuff to the test and actually try these things out and learn from the fish and learn from the situation. And it's really been a huge impact in the way that I fish now, especially.
Yeah, man, just like I tell people every week, you got to get out there on the water. You're not, I am a fishing podcaster and I've been an outdoor writer and fishing communicator for, going on 30 years now. That's all fine and good, but you got to get out there on the water.
Nothing beats time on the water simply because, you're just being more aware of what's actually happening. I'm picking up on signs from nature that are obvious to me, but may not be obvious to someone that gets to, or that stays at home all the time and then gets to go fish in just a tournament or something like that. Now, if that's your only time out there, so be it. You should probably take all the information that you have available and try to go out, read books, look at YouTube, watch all this stuff, listen to the guys talking. When it comes to baits, maybe turn it off and go look at some more informational stuff, fish behavior. When you go out and apply this stuff on the water, you can gain a ton of information. But if you don't have anywhere to start, you don't have a foundation of knowledge, then when you go out there, you're still just sort of guessing. And that, as we know, doesn't really provide consistency every day.
Well, when I was guiding, I used to tell people that one day on the water with me, one day on the water can take 3 years off your learning curve for this lake.
Sure.
And that's exactly it. I'm going to impart so much information, just like I talked to you. And that's why I invited you on again, because you agree with the same thing I agree with. I want to teach these people how to fish so they can go out there and fish than their own. And, I saw some of the comments we got. Well, you're giving away too much information. Now they're going to go out there and no, I disagree. I couldn't disagree with that more.
Yeah.
I could not disagree because the information that you have fought for and you know how to do it. And man, so much of fishing, like when you're working, particularly you like to use a lot of finesse techniques. That can only be learned through time on the water.
Sure. And look, I've always thought, ever since I started doing this, my one goal was to just engage people in a conversation, an open conversation about fish behavior and the things that they experience, and stop keeping secrets and maybe talk about this stuff a little bit more, because then we can all become more educated. And look, when it comes to it, everybody that I pass on this information to while they're on my boat, not only am I out there learning every day when I'm not doing a trip, but during my trips, I'm passing the information along and I'm learning from even what people are doing while they're on my boat. But the big thing is afterwards. I've shared a lot of information with you, and now I've shown you how to do things. Now it's time for you to go out and do it. So when you do it, now you maybe have a great experience, and you come back and you tell me, and we talk about it, and we have, just a lot more of an open environment for discussion about what's actually happening there. And it's not these companies pumping product in our face. It's more, what did you do?
And we have for our first comment, it's from International Freshwater Fishing Hall of Famer and rod manufacturer, United States rod manufacturer, Jim Grant. He said, "Great job, Mitch. Keep up the hard work. Very, very good techniques. Man, I need my glasses."
Thank you,
And
Jim.
simple, solid tactics. Hard work pays off. Nice job, Jay and Mitch. Jim Grant was one of the first guys from the fishing industry who believed in me when I started back this time. And it was not easy to start a podcast back in 2019. It's a lot of work.
I can only imagine.
Just like starting a guide business, you declare yourself a guide. Well, now what?
Really, who sort of deems you as a guide? I feel like when it comes to teachers and teachers of things, whether that be, in school or, a coach or something like that, I try to look at this as a perspective as if I'm not out there at the top of my game looking for things and trying to figure out new stuff all the time, well, then I have no business sharing that information with people, because I may not know that thing in depth. But I think, to tie in the time on the water, I'm putting a lot of time out there. Same with you. When you're out there, you're actually putting in research. You're trying to figure things out. As a matter of fact, those hard days are the days that you learn the most, because when
Absolutely,
you have overcome adversity, and you know what, when it comes to all this stuff, that's really what we should be talking about, is how to truly overcome that day and challenge the conditions themselves, and try to figure everything out, because every day is different.
I think in order to learn something, I have to connect with at least one fish.
Sure. Or even get a short strike. Or I tell you what, even the day you didn't catch, I've zeroed before for sure. That day, I knew that maybe there was an easy bite somewhere. I could go flipping and catch a fish out of a tree or something. But in order to learn something new that you don't know, you are going to have to go out there and fail. And you know what? You're going to fail and fail and fail. And then when you succeed, boy, you really learn something. And that may be the next day. Maybe
and we have another comment from the audience. It's Alex Gobi Joe Olenginski.
Yes.
He said, "The legend, Mitch Metcalf. Thank you very much for commenting." And also Jim Grant, thank you very much for commenting. I love it when you guys comment. A podcast that's engaged is a very, very good podcast.
Thank you, Alex. Yeah. So actually, we were just out on the water together. And it's funny, we got on this podcast and we were talking about presentation with swim baits initially. And, I feel like that is an excellent search tool. It's very versatile. We talked about some different sizes and going big in the winter rather than small. Maybe that gets those fish's attention, and they come out and they start hunting your bait instead of, running away from it. So we're out there today throwing chatterbaits. It's 39-degree water. We're throwing them in 2 feet of water, catching them, burning them. There's no reason why we should be doing that. However, we had current, we had dirty water, all the right situations. The fish that want to feed, they're going to go position themselves just like it's summertime. And it doesn't really matter while you're on the water. If you're not picking up on those details, boy, you just won't ever put yourself in a position to maybe not only catch 1 or 2 or 3 fish, but to, catch 20 fish and have them all be bigger fish, or, stuff like that. You're never going to figure out those little details. So we're out there just trying to dispel some of these myths about cold water fishing, especially. This is my favorite.
That's what Alex just commented on that. He said, "I was just out with him today, and we did." Oh man, we lost him.
Oh.
Nope, he's back. I'm glad you're back.
Screen or something. There we go.
Yeah. I seem to have good bars, but he said, "I was just out with him today, and we did something I've never thought I would ever do. Chatterbaits in 39-degree water. 39-degree water. These guys are throwing chatterbaits. Wow. Yeah, that's wow. You're right. I would never think of doing that. Just
You know, so and it's funny. It's a lot of this is time on the water, attention to detail, and a little persistence when it comes to being out there under extreme conditions and things like that. But so that's just up to, I feel like that's my job. That's what I'm here to do. That's what I want to do. Uh, but then to add in, the technology like live scope and all these things that are additional now that you sort of had the opportunity to use, um, I'm learning so much more about how the fish are actually behaving. It's not every technique that we were taught in the wintertime. A lot of it was done through a hole in the ice. So a lot of it's vertical jigging and stuff like that. But when you have open water, you shouldn't just be out there vertical jigging. Uh, it couldn't be, it's probably the worst thing you could do. Matter of fact, what I've found is that a bunch of fish will leave an area and start chasing a bait that has been fished properly overhead. So rather than drop a hair jig on the bottom and a silver buddy and things like these things, I'm using these big tools like a swim bait, a glide bait, chatter baits, things that get these fish to leave their hiding place. You know, we would have thought about things like that had there not been a little advancement in technology, and to be able to see what's going on down there. So it has been a really big treat as a guide to be able to see how this stuff is developing.
that's fantastic. About the only thing a time I ever targeted bass in the cold water season was, geez, pre-spawn.
Right.
And pre-spawn, you have your twitch baits, where you're twitching minnow baits, stick baits, stuff, and Carolina rigging. And I mean, it was like when I would work a Carolina rig in pre-spawn, I just barely move it, and it would usually be in a creek channel that leads into a spawning bin.
Yeah, excellent. Let's talk about that. I like that. Every scenario has the perfect tool for the job, right? You found these fish in transition that were moving into an area. You found a place where fish were coming to you. You've now effectively fished your bait right near the bottom and in that strike zone, but not on the bottom specifically with your lure, but your weight is. So you're maintaining contact with the bottom. You're able to feel when one swims by and actually picks that thing up. Now, those fish, maybe they're not super energetic yet. They just left cold water. They're starting to get up in, a little bit warmer water, but that doesn't really take effect until they've been there for a little while. So that Carolina rig is the best tool for the job in that situation, for sure. And you found it.
Yeah, that was, geez, I haven't done that in a long time, but that was like at the very beginning of my guiding that I did.
Yeah,
I took people out, and they wanted to go out in the pre-spawn. I'm like, wow, this is not the time of plenty. If we catch one, it's going to be 5 pounds. But
sure. Well, and look, so that sort of brings it down to, the time of year, those conditions that you have in front of your face. I mean, you may not be searching for a group of 300 fish all stacked together, ready to bite, and all this stuff that they talk about in fall and whatever. But you may get 1 or 2 fish that are 5-6 pound that move into a specific area. Well, now you just have to go find more areas that are just like that. And that's how these big top pros are winning these big events, is because they know this stuff. This is common knowledge to them. They're finding it. Okay. And then they're fishing it right. And they're doing all these things that there's a lot of variables involved, and there's a little bit of luck, but take the information that you have at hand and make the best decisions because of it, not despite the conditions. We went out recently in seek of that cold, dirty water that we're all taught to avoid, even the shady side of the bank in the wintertime. Guess what? I catch all my biggest fish in the shaded side of the bank. It's miserable to sit over there when it's wintertime.
Yes.
But guess what? That's where they're just relating to whatever they have available. It's up to you to figure that out. And don't ever let the conditions deter you from going out. That you can catch a fish every single day of the year. I will say that. And you can probably catch one on a swim bait or a Ned rig any day of the year. I can guarantee that.
Yeah. On swim baits, yes. Now let's talk size of swim baits.
Yeah,
I,
sure.
when I go fishing for speckled trout down here, I like 2.5 inch long swim baits on a quarter ounce, even in current. I can work a quarter ounce jig. I can get it down to the bottom, even maybe probably not in the heaviest current, but the heaviest current that Southern Louisiana has to.
Okay.
You just have to know how to work it.
Yeah, for sure.
But you like to work a little bit bigger than 2.5 inches, don't you?
So when I can, given the opportunity, we'll say, to throw a larger bait around a big group of fish, well, I'm just targeting that bigger fish in that area. Let's say there's 3-4 pounders in a group of 200 2-pounders. Well, my 6-inch swim bait may be the choice meal for one of those larger fish, and they'll push the other ones out of the way for it. Now, it's interesting you talk about weight. I think that is the most important thing when it comes to swim baits. Choosing the right size and length of swim bait with the proper paddle tail and such, with the right weight head. If it is not the right weighted head, that will not swim appropriately in the water for it to do its job. You really want these baits as a search tool. You want to slow down so that you can try to target those bigger fish that may just be hanging out. If I'm throwing a 6-inch swim bait, I probably can't throw it on a quarter ounce bait or a quarter ounce jig head. However, a 2.8-inch bait, I will throw on a quarter ounce head. Let's say I'm throwing a 6-inch lure.
Okay, let me ask you a question.
What's that?
Now, if you wanted to just work this weightless, could you put an offset worm hook on it?
Weightless, sure. Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of guys will fish, sort of an underspin with a blade underneath it, try to give it a little extra flash. Some of the stuff is designed to wiggle up overhead. I'm talking more about, especially this time of year and in the summer when we're offshore fishing and trying to get that bait down on the bottom. You even talked about it even with the quarter ounce. You can feel the bottom as you're fishing it, okay? If that bait is swimming just nice and steady across the bottom, that is how all the real food moves around down there. So while these fish, yeah, I mean that's just how it goes. Now, my 6-inch swim bait with a 3/8 head on it is going to fish exactly the same speed and depth that a quarter ounce with a 2.8-inch bait on it will fish. I'm just targeting that slightly bigger fish, but it's fishing the same speed, and everything's super consistent with my retrieve speed and my hands and my rod position and all that, ensuring the best hookup ratio. And that's something that's really important. That I feel like
we have another.
Yeah,
we have another comment from the audience. It's Co-Angler Corner. Co-Angler Corner is a new podcast. Two of my very good friends, John Stoutinger and Rob Welsh.
Okay. Hi, John.
John, thank you so much for coming on, man. I'm wishing you all the luck, and I will help you however I have to help you for Co-Angler Corner to be successful. But with John doing it, I know it's going to be successful. But okay, back to swim baits, man.
I can't get enough.
Man, I can't get enough of them either. The reason I asked you is gosh, what the heck was that thing called? Man, don't ever get old. Don't ever get old, Mitch. Don't ever get old. Because there was a lure that was like the predecessor of the Zoom Fluke.
Okay.
That we all used back in the early 90s. And it was the first swim bait. And that's how I thought I had to use it. I would put it on, I threaded it onto to an offset worm hook, and I would just twitch it over the tops of the weeds.
Sure.
And I would wait till I felt it hit, and then it would.
Right. Okay.
Man, I caught a lot of fish doing that.
And certainly in the grass, I mean, you're talking about where the fish are positioned as well. They're in a position, they're ambush predators. That's where they want to feed from. So you're just doing the appropriate presentation given the situation where that fish is sitting. Now, if you don't have grass, especially in the winter time or these colder months, now instead of grass, it's now rock. Very hard to get that weightless swim bait down in water to that rock. So now really the best thing to do is put a weighted head on it, right? I've just found that there's
absolutely.
Every tool has its job, and every situation has a bait that it's, something's going to work the best for. And that's up to you to figure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, John Stoutinger just said swim bait, smallies don't hit them.
No, they ain't golf them.
Yeah, they absolutely annihilate them. That's what I like so much about, growing up as a bass fisherman and a walleye fisherman and a pike fisherman. Man, come down here and I can apply everything I learned for the first 50 years of my life, obsessively fishing, to the marsh. And, I know how to work a jig. I know how to, go through the whole gamut of presentations from, just holding it still and letting it pendulum down.
Yeah.
To throwing it out there and, just letting it hit the bottom and then, going nuts on it like this.
Sure.
To attract more attention down there on the bottom. It's really fun to apply what I learned on something that's completely different and having it work.
Okay. Yeah, no, for sure. And to add to that, you said you're fishing for trout, sea trout down there, speckled trout. And it's funny, we have a lot of walleye and striper, and you see on my posts, that's, I'm doing a lot of different things. I can tell you from experience and day in and day out, if I'm throwing a swim bait and I'm getting bit by doing the same consistent retrieve, every single species of fish is going to bite exactly the same way. It feels exactly the same from sea trout to crappie to striper to largemouth or smallmouth. The way that they hit that lure is identical, and it's something to be said. It also works on all of those species. So, to take something that we all know is proven to catch fish in any body of water, to use tools like that makes sense. And to apply the technique that you need for that type of tool, to apply that stuff to your everyday fishing should be really at the forefront of your mind. And that's obviously that's how you fish now, the same way you did 50 years. You know what I mean? That's just how it goes. It worked then. It worked now. Why not?
Yeah. And, like you said, when I'm on a tough bite, my brain is going, you can smell the gears grinding if you're close to me, because I'm going through my database that, is my brain about fishing. And I'm thinking about every situation I've ever been confronted with. And how can that apply to what I'm doing right now? And then I'm walking back to my truck and I'm going to pull out my huge tackle bag. And I'm going to find something that's going to catch me fish.
For sure.
We have a question from the audience. It's from John Stoutinger again. Do you ever use a treble hook as a stinger hook when you're using a bigger swim bait?
That is a great question, John. At times I do, actually, especially with flukes and open water fishing more than this would be a little bit of a clear water situation, maybe a slight depth to it, or just overhead over top of grass or something like that. Generally, when I'm fishing on the bottom, though, the way that the fish is going to feed on that bait, the way they eat it, on the bottom, they're pinning it to the bottom. I tend to hook them right in the nose with that single hook. Whereas with the treble hook, I'm fishing that more up high over top of things. And then, it's definitely an effective way to not lose them, for sure. Yeah, that was a great question. I do use one a lot, and I use it with swim baits and flukes.
Wow. That was a good question. Thank you for that question, John.
Yeah.
I do appreciate you.
See, these are the kinds of things I feel more conversation about that type of stuff is so important. Some guys would never even share something like that for fear of somebody figuring it out, and I don't know, they might affect their brain during a tournament or something. That to me is just, these are things that can really help you, with your hookup ratio and, just getting that fish in the boat so you can actually take a picture of it or take it home and eat it, whatever you want to do with it. These things matter. And these are the things that we should probably be, having these discussions about. So I thank you for having podcasts like this talking about the presentation aspects of things. Very important.
Yeah, I do believe, I've learned so much from podcasting, and I did a radio show years ago, and I would have the Chicagoland Bass Pros on, and I learned so much.
Oh yeah.
It helped me a lot in my guiding too,
Yeah.
In fact, sometimes I'd have some guy on, I just ask him, here's the conditions I'm confronted with. I can't find the walleyes. And boy, that guy, well, you want to go to find this set of conditions and do this. And
yeah.
I'd do that. I'd be out in the water the next day.
And that's so funny that you say that. He even told you right there, he's going out to seek those conditions so that you can look for something specific. And I tell you what, that when it comes down to having success every day, I'm not saying go fish the same situation every day, but if you're presented with a situation that you've been faced with before, you're definitely at an advantage there. So if you were catching them in dirty water and then all of a sudden it went clean, go seek the dirty water if you can find it. It's those fish will position the same way that they do every single time because that's how they feed efficiently. And I think that's something that we should really be focused on. And I'm glad that he said that to you. That's pretty good stuff.
Oh yeah, a lot of people are just really good at what they do. I mean, some people just that's one thing I've learned being an outdoor communicator for so many years is just ask questions, because we only have so many years and you can only learn, and you only have so much time on this earth, and you're only going to be able to learn so much. So just maximize that by just seeking out other people.
No doubt. Yeah. Aside from, fishing with a true professional guide, go out, fish with your buddies, fish with people that maybe you have no idea how they're fishing, or, maybe just take a chance and go see what happens, because you may learn something from that person that could help you for the rest of your life, really.
That's what these guys at Co-Angler Corner do. They're two guys who fish as co-anglers on, all kinds of different circuits. I think Rob's going to fish. Rob is John's sidekick there.
Okay.
He's going to fish 20 tournaments next year as a co-angler. And he just made a comment. He said size 10 or 12 work on 2.8 as well. I guess he's talking about the smaller. You can even put a stinger hook on a smaller.
For sure. Oh yeah. Anything should be scalable, right? If you're fishing that bait, it should fish the same way every single time, whether it's a 2-inch or a 6-inch. You should feel, as you're retrieving that bait, it should feel exactly the same. If you got it dialed, that it's going to feel exactly the same.
See, that's one thing I learned as a walleye fisherman is how when I felt that initial, a bait's coming along, a walleye has those teeth out in the front of their mouth, and so do speckled trout. He's just going to come up and grab onto it. And if you set the hook, you're just going to pull through your soft plastic, or, a lot of times I would use live bait like a leech for a walleye. So when he grabs onto it, you have to have nerves of steel to just sit there and, you have to maintain positive control. So I developed this thing where I kind of went down and, reel up the slack, reel up the slack, reel up the slack. Then when I feel what he's doing is he's pulling it deeper into his mouth, then you set the hook.
Sure. And
it takes nerves of steel.
But being able to feel things like that, God, you talked about having positive control. That is always having a connection to your bait.
Yes.
And that I teach heavily day in and day out. I stress the importance of it so much, because when you feel that initial bite, whether it's, live bait or not, when you feel that bite, you can now do something about it. And really that's where all the other stuff comes in. And how the heck do you even practice all the hook set stuff and the fighting fish and doing all those things unless you actually get the bites? So yeah, there's presentation, and all these things really matter more than the actual brand name of the product, for sure.
Yes. You have to have a good rod, and, you get what you pay for, as far as I'm concerned.
That's true.
And you have to have good line, and you have to keep one as a young angler. I had to learn you do have to change your line, because back in the 70s we never thought about that. We bought blue Kmart line because that was
and look, line
was available.
A lot of line was very different back then. I think there's been huge advancements in the line and the coatings and all this stuff. You know, and I always say everyone's built different. You're going to have to choose things that work for you, whether that's the rod, the reel, the line, whatever that is. You know, you pair that for you. There's a ton of information available online. You know, people that even put up their height and their weight and all that stuff, and then share the information about their rods. That's the kind of stuff that you should be doing. You should be looking into that stuff that suits you. And then when you go fishing, you know, try to figure out all those fish behavior type of things, and try to make decisions based on that. Yeah.
I completely agree with you. You know, just the way you hold your rod, that's
Yeah.
so important. Cork handles.
Yeah.
Cork transmits, and the foam that we used to get doesn't transmit a subtle tap very well.
Mm.
Where
Now,
cork,
if
cork
you have control over your bait, as you've talked about, man, you're gonna feel no matter what. You know, it doesn't matter if you're you know, even flounder fishing or something like that versus bass. That if you have control over your bait and your rod is in the position that makes sense for that technique, that's why I stress this stuff so much. But that is the stuff that you are always going to be in control of, no matter what rod. You could do it on a Barbie rod. I guarantee you, if you sat there and you paid attention to enough details, it may not be the most efficient thing to do it with, but you should be able to do this using anything. That is the cool thing about this. You know, we should be.
man, when
Yeah.
I'm trying to work a swim bait in heavy current in deep water with a lot of line out, I just have my head down, and
Mm-hmm.
I am in the zone, man. I am concentrating on that with everything I have. I'm trying to, and then when something finally, or when something picks it up, and all of a sudden it stops its downstream.
Yeah.
Sets are free.
For sure.
Even though I use circle hooks, I cannot stop myself. That is just so thrilling too. It's just thrilling to me.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, that's what connects you to that fish, and that's what we're all looking for, whether it's you or me or anybody. I mean, we should all enjoy this that much. I can see the passion in your face every time you talk about any of this stuff. It's the same thing I feel for sure. Um, Even going out and getting to even miss one or something, that's enough to get those juices flowing and really start thinking about, hey, what's next? And the possibilities that are behind fishing when it comes to going out, and you never know what you could catch. That is the beauty of it. I think that's something we should all be starting to seek out a little bit more instead of maybe being frustrated or something. I think to see this passion out of you and others in this field, I think that's
Well,
great.
when I stopped getting angry about losing a fish, and when I started thinking, okay, what could I have done differently?
Yeah.
Or was that fish just better than I am? You know,
Yeah.
sometimes you run into a fish that's just a better fish than I am an angler, you know.
For sure.
When I stopped taking it personally and just started thinking, okay, what could I have done differently instead of what did I do wrong? I don't, you're gonna make mistakes.
Yeah, I don't know if they have the J Angel journal down there and they can read all your feelings and things like that. Maybe they go over that at night. I don't know how to get in your head.
Actually, I think deer do that. I don't know if fish do.
I do that too. Yeah. Yeah. I think they all share the same email address or something.
Yeah.
But we can all, especially anglers, can make a ton of excuses as to why we didn't catch them that day or whatever it is. But, it's pretty easy to blame a bunch of jet skis or, oh, it was too cold or it was this and that. It was too windy. But really, it's up to you to go figure out those conditions of the day and make the best decisions again and just stay focused and enjoy the process of it all.
Man,
Yeah.
you talk about jet skis. I can remember when I was in high school, I was living in northern Indiana, and my dad and I would fish the lakes of southern Michigan, which were just overrun with largemouth bass. It was a lot of fun. And you're talking the 80s here, so we were using pre-rigged worms that had the
Okay.
bronze Aberdeen hooks.
Oh, yeah.
So you never, if you caught a bass over 5 pounds, you're darn good.
Right.
Because they would just straighten out. A big bass would just straighten out those hooks, and if you could even hook into a bass that's that old and has that big of a mouth. But we caught a lot of 12, 14-inch bass, and I can remember sitting there in the ski lanes catching bass.
Well, yeah,
one after another all day long.
Yeah, they weren't.
The skiers would get mad at us. This is our part of you got the whole damn lake. And my dad was a very angry person too, and he'd say the same thing. You got the whole lake. You can fish. You can ski. You got to ski right here. Well, Dad, this is a ski lane.
Yeah.
And if you're gonna invade their territory, you just don't look at them. Don't look at them, Dad. Come on. No, I got my own boat.
We should all be able to enjoy the water, especially in areas like this in Redding. I mean, we only have Blue Marsh. That's the only unlimited horsepower lake within an hour or so of here. So everyone's going to come and enjoy it. And you know what? If you want to go fishing and you don't want to deal with that, then go try to do it early and get the heck out of there if you can. But I can assure you, based on experience and time on the water, that all these factors don't really matter. It's really in your head. I think I've had probably the best days I've ever had on the lake while there's a gajillion boats running around. Jet ski drives over the spot, and I catch one immediately. This stuff just activates fish. The boat has never done anything to hurt a fish. They're not that smart. I'm sorry, guys. I hate to break it. They will use the conditions around them and the environment around them to feed the most efficiently. That's all they care about. They care about sustaining, living, spawning, and that's that. I mean, that's just what they do. Getting bigger.
Yeah. I like your attitude. We're overthinking a lot of this.
Pretty easy to do that. And you know what? Look, it's not all our faults. We've been told as anglers since the first bait was ever made, hey, buy this bait that's gonna catch this fish. Go do it. If it doesn't work, go buy this color, and we make all these options, and here's some scent and all this stuff. Look, at the end of the day, did you put your bait in a place where there was a fish? Unless you determine that, you don't know if all these other things work, okay? So I feel like there's just so much more to this that it's not really our faults. We've been pumped to believe that another bait is going to be the situational fix for catching a fish if you haven't caught one yet. But really, location. These things are important. Sunshine overhead, that makes a difference. The water clarity, that makes a difference. These are things that should dictate how you approach every situation. And those are the things that really do matter. And yeah, I think whatever bait you need to choose for that situation is appropriate.
Water temperature too, yeah.
Yeah, sure. And that may dictate how quickly you can cover water. Again, back to the 39, we catch them in 34-degree water sometimes. If they're in 2 feet of water, they're more than willing to eat a fast-moving bait. They're there to feed.
Yes.
It has more to do with the fish position based on what the conditions are. You know what I mean? If it is colder, they will be a little bit slower moving. But hey, if they're in 2 feet of water versus 20 feet of water, you may be able to target them differently.
Absolutely. Well, it's 38 after the hour. Do you have any shout outs you'd like to do?
I mean, I would love to shout out not only you for giving me this opportunity, but iBass 360 and Rob Zorn.
Absolutely.
And the guys at Sport Fishing Outlet here in Norristown. I mean, they've been such a big help with, getting some of this information out there and making it possible for people to even have these conversations. It's very cool. And then, companies like Livingston, they've really done so much with the science behind these lures and what type of things really do affect these fish. And these are things that I truly believe in. And, I really would like to encourage people to think more about having these types of conversations and linking up with people like you and watching these podcasts and learning from the people that are actually doing this stuff. Not just selling baits. So, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. And then, I can't say enough about iBass 360. Eric Evans and Rob Zorn have helped me so much to grow my podcast, and I've learned so much from those guys. Yeah. I encourage everybody who watches this to go to ibass360.com. Just check out what they're about. It's they're really a couple of guys who just believe. Their motto is live the passion. And, Mitch and I have talked about that a couple times during this podcast, that, we live the passion. It's, that's one thing I say. If I ever lose the enthusiasm, I'm going to quit fishing because it's just too much work.
Correct. Ain't that the truth?
It really is, and at the end of the day, if you want to be in the fishing industry, you're going to be working 365 days a year. It's just the way it is, because if you don't do it, somebody else will.
Well, that's true too. Yeah, I have too much to learn. I got to get out there and keep fishing every single day. So that's just how it goes.
And I envy you for that. I envy you for that. You're in a place where you can do that. And wow, that's fantastic, man. Well, you know what, guys? Thursday night, I realize a lot of you live in places that you probably can't fish right now because the ice isn't safe, but be safe, but get out there, because like we've talked about a lot, you only get to do this once. And take it from me. I've had so many health problems. I've realized that, your life is short. Enjoy what you got. Yeah. Enjoy what you got. And with that, I'm going to end the podcast. Mitch, stick around. I'd like to talk to you for 2 minutes afterwards.
Thank you all very much again for listening, and we hope to see you out there.
Also, donorthfishing.com, man. Oh, there's Sport Fishing Outlet.
Hey, Sport Fishing Outlet.
We're going to show that one. Someone has to be able to fish every day. Mitch is a lucky man. He takes advantage of every minute of it. I agree with you, Rob. I agree.
And, I had to make this up.
Rob is
he's
a wise man.
Yeah. I had to make this opportunity for myself a little bit, but because of that, it would be foolish and selfish of me to, just try to take all this information and keep it to myself or something. That would be absolutely insane. This stuff has to be shared. And I think these guys and you and all this conversation is just so awesome. Thank you so much.
Wow. Well, thank you, Rob, for commenting. I appreciate that. Always good to see a friend come on and comment. With that, I'm going to end the podcast, and stick around, Mitch.
Cool.